Hello, Looney listeners. You're listening to episode 14 of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. I'm one of your cage fighters, Ray.
I'm your other man-turned-beast in a cage, Connor. And this week, we have so much news for your delight. We have the final issue of Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight, issue 14, before the all-new run starts. And we take back to a classic run with issue 20 of the Benson run. So sit back, grab our issues, and get your Khonshu on.
Connor. We are back, episode 14, and in a sharp contrast to last episode, we have got a mountain of news to get through. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's the end of exam season, so I am very tired, but I'm just about done. So next week will be all good. Actually, Wednesday, the big new comic book day, I'll be finished with exams, so it's a good feeling. So, yeah, I mean, you've been pretty busy yourself, I hear.
Yeah, I've let it. It's no secret. I tell everyone. Eve and I, we did a big move. So finally got all our stuff in the new place. It took about 8.5 hours for the movers to bring it all in. It all culminated in our 3-meter long couch being winched up through the balcony, so that was quite an experience. But we're all unpacked. I'd say we're 100% done. All the boxes have been unpacked and everything's in its place. Last night we had a housewarming as well, which was like a double for a housewarming and a kind of like belated birthday for Eve. So it's been all systems go. And today has been, I guess, the first day in the last couple of weeks where we've been able to kind of sit back a bit and just start enjoying the new place. But more importantly, haven't missed a beat with Into the Night, so excited to get into episode 14, which is a seminal episode as well, isn't it, Connor? Because it's the last issue for Lemire's fantastic run.
Yeah, we've kind of had our own little thing going with sort of the way we've done our modern reviews and our classic reviews, but that all changes as we don't have a new review every week, but we'll be mixing up. We got figure reviews, we got animation reviews, we got everything coming up, so don't you be amiss as we're crying for the end of Lemire's run as the Bemis run starts next week.
Yeah, it's definitely heading towards
this
Uncharted.
Week, actually.
Well, yeah, it is technically. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this Wednesday, right? My gosh, it's so close. It's crazy close. But we are heading towards Uncharted territory, and our security blanket, which was the Lemire run, is coming to an end. But looking forward to all the reviews that we have up ahead. Especially one of the first things, I guess, Connor, which ties into our first bit of news, we'll speak later on, would be the Funko Pops, which I've seen on our Facebook group. A lot of the loonies have got their hands on a little Funko Pop already, so that's pretty good to see.
Yeah, fantastic. I think just about every retailer who can get them is getting them. I know my store's got them coming in. You've bought yours online, yeah?
Yeah, it's been surprisingly easy, considering they were saying it's an LA Comic Con exclusive, the glow-in-the-dark one. One loony posted up Pop Culture, which is, is one of the news items coming up, but he just mentioned how you can just order it online. I think they're based in Victoria, Australia, and you can just order it, and I've already got confirmation that it's going to be delivered, I think, tomorrow, so I'm stoked.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure when mine will be coming in for doing a joint review on the pod, but yeah, I ordered a glow-in-the-dark, adjusting his tie with the sleeves up and the classic sort of sleeves down, nice walk. There's 2 variations you'll find, but yeah. They're great. They're the regular price of Funkos, I think.
Yep. I think, Aussie dollar, they come out to be about $18, $19, which I think is, I think it's regular. But how crazy is this? Like, we've been I think for a while now, we've been wondering about, whether there'd be a Moon Knight Funko Pop. There isn't one, and we're finally here with not only one, but we've got one special edition one. Well, two actually, because as we mentioned before, there are two versions of the glow in the dark. So you can either get the blue or the green one, and I think you can't tell until you bring it into a dimly lit or a dark room.
There's a fair amount of glow too. Like I have a like a black suit Spider-Man glow in the dark, and it's nowhere near as bright as the Moon Knight one.
Have you got a Funko Pop Spider-Man? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a
Awesome.
and Spider-Gwen and two Batmans.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say aficionado, but I sure do have 4.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think if any character has to glow in the dark, it's got to be Mr. Knight or Moon Knight. So it's good to hear that he's he's shining a light in the darkness. But just going back a bit before, we've got like tour reviews. We can cover. Connor and I, we've been talking about wanting to review the Ultimate Spider-Man animated episode with Moon Knight in there. There's also games, Connor, as well. Contest of Champions, and also a couple of other Marvel Future Fight, I think, with Moon Knight in there. So there's plenty to cover, and we'll still do our. We're still pretty keen on doing having some guest narrators. Who we have one this evening as well, which is fantastic. But there's been a lot of interest, Connor, in people wanting to do it. So that's got to be a good sign.
Yeah, we're hot off the press with the biggest Moon Knight podcast that ever was.
Yeah, so looking so excited. I'm not only looking excited, I am excited for it. But also as well, kind of, we were just chatting just quickly before we went on air. You finally caught up with a bit of a Thor Ragnarok earlier today.
Yeah, I saw it about midday today. It was a packed cinema even then on a 12 o'clock Sunday, but it was a fantastic movie. I think it's top 3 for mine, being Homecoming, Winter Soldier, and then Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. I loved it. I love the characters, the acting, the comedy always struck with me. It was great.
Those are pretty good top 3 films, I reckon, and it's a good sign when when you think of your top 3 that you kind of have to cull a couple, because those 3 are pretty good. For me, I'd put Civil War, and I do love the Ant-Man film in a different way, so I'd have to put that up there somewhere. But it's a great sign from Marvel, and were there a lot of belly laughs in the cinema with a full cinema?
Oh yeah, you know it. It
That's
always
the best.
Going off.
Oh yeah, it's the best sort of film. The best sort of experience for that film, I reckon. That type of film that goes for a lot of laughs, and you've got to be in a packed cinema for it to get the full effect. But yeah, I mean, look, let's not dwell on it. There are plenty of other great podcasts out there that will cover and review Thor Ragnarok. But let's get into the news, Connor. So the first bit of news that we got, which I think, again, literally came, I think, the day after we released episode 13, was Marvel Moon Knight Funko, and one of our loonies posted it up, saying that Pop Culture, which you can check out, popculture.com.au, they were saying that we have them in stock. Basically, there were no caveats to it. You could actually just order it. There was nothing about one per customer or we only have a limited number. It seemed pretty much business as usual. For Aussies and for those of you overseas who may find it hard to get a hold of, I definitely recommend you try out Pop Culture. So like Connor said, I've ordered glow in the dark and a standard one from there. So it's and it's already on its way. I think it's coming tomorrow. So that's really good news for Aussie Looney fans. But again, if you're maybe in non-US and it's a bit harder to come by, give this website a go. I'm pretty sure they do international shipping.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I think it's great. We got our Moon Knight Legend figures coming in soon as well. They're still available as well.
Yes, that's right.
I sadly can't imagine them being on the shelves for like months into the future. So I think if you are undecided or haven't jumped on board, if you are ordering your Pop Funkos, if you got that cheddar there, you get your Legends figures in.
Yeah, that's true because the legend figures are, I mean, they're becoming harder and harder to find, and in some ways they're harder to find than these Funko Pops, which I thought would be hard to find. Um, but yeah, like I said, pop culture, they haven't disappointed me yet, so I will be using them again. And a short thing as well for anyone who orders over $100 within Australia, you get free shipping. So if you've got a few mates, why not just pull it all together and save yourself some money with free shipping. So that was the first bit of news. Connor, what was that? I think the second one was something that you posted on.
Yes, it's crazy. So next week is Moon Knight 188. You know, we started this podcast 15 weeks ago, and honestly, it seemed like this issue was coming 2 years away, like our next bit of Moon Knight, and now it's just next week. It's properly surreal. So
Yeah.
I think, oh look, I don't know quite the date, but we got a full lettered preview. Actually, not one, but 2 lettered previews this week of separate pages.
Right.
The one we'll link below is one from Buzz Comics.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're gonna do a preview, I'd click on that one. There's another one by adventuresinpoortaste.com, which I feel not like super spoilery, but at the same time, that's like 6 pages of your issue you're getting in previews. We're so
Wow.
close, like 3 days out from the book. You should. I'm feeling just
Yeah.
weighted off.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think a couple of the loonies had mentioned something like that as well. It was so close, and I mean, 6 pages out of what, 22, 23. I'd be happy to read one or two, but it is exciting to know that it's out there.
Oh yeah, and it just this whole week has just been, new people tweeting about it. We've had 2 new previews. I think we've got a couple of articles coming up in this this news segment as well. This week has just been every day just a new source of hype for this issue this Wednesday. It's absolutely mental. Ray, did you want to go through the preview, or should we leave it for loonies to click at their own discretion before Wednesday?
Let's just leave it for the loonies to have a look. But just overall impressions. I just want to say that I'm looking at it now, and I'm loving the art by Jason Burrows.
Oh, isn't it absolutely fantastic?
It's really weird because we've seen some of the preview art, right, of his, and it's really cool. Sometimes it's quite stylized and simple, whereas other times he does get into the details. But I love these close-ups of the faces and of Dr. Emmett and the patient who... What was he called again? He had a number, wasn't he? Anyway,
86.
86, yeah. But anyway, the art was really good. Anything to take away from this, Connor, as well, from your perspective?
Just generally, the news we've gotten this week, this issue is going to be like no other Moon Knight issue before. It is absolutely mental. It's just going to set up this new run in a crazy new way. Before the next issue, 189 later this month, will actually be the one that even introduces Moon Knight to us in this run. This is just sort of a crazy off-the-wall issue of this just batshit insane world that Bemis and Burrows are setting up, and it looks fantastic. Actually,
It does look good.
and just sort of a little tidbit from the other preview, a previous unlettered preview is shown to be unlettered. There's actually a previous preview page we've got and has been shown with its lettering. So
Okay.
make of that what you will.
Right. Yeah. I wonder which one. I haven't checked it, so I'm trying to keep myself. Any kind of spoiler free, except for I'm just looking at this page, which was on the Buzz Comics one, which is pretty cool. The other thing I noticed as well, again, not going to get too much into it, but with Max Bemis's writing, it really reminded me of Fool Killer. I'm interested to know as well, Connor, if he did the same with the Worst X-Men, which you'd read. He's not short on words. Let's just say that, but he's not overly heavy. But there's a nice meaty chunk of text in these panels. So it's I'm looking forward to reading the whole issue. But what do you think? You think too many words or?
No, this is really good writing, and I think it's this issue being so particular. I'm not sure how wordy this will be so representative of what we'll get later with Moon Knight. I think this is very particular, but I love the writing for the characters. The patient 86, who will be our big focus of this issue, is absolutely fascinating, terrifying, and just a weird look into a psyche that Bemis just absolutely nails.
Yeah, there's I think later on in one of the articles he mentions there is a horror and a scare element to it, which he hopes to instill in this whole Moon Knight tone, the tone of the book. So yeah, I can't wait to see what that is. I know that, just going back to the text, just because I don't know, the other writers that we have come across as well, kind of like to me immediately, like Charles Soule from Daredevil, especially with in particular the courtroom issue. Some writers tend to really some writers describe a lot in their text, and sometimes it doesn't give much for the artist to do. What am I saying? Sorry, going around in circles. Sometimes they put. There is a danger of putting too much text in, and it doesn't give enough space for the artist to breathe. But there is also a fine line. You obviously you don't want the artwork to say everything, right? You've got to actually put a bit of meat to the bones as well. And with Bemis's writing from Fool Killer and from what I see in Moon Knight, there is a nice chunky bit of text there, but but looking art wise as well, there's a lot. Like he gives Burroughs scope to do 3/4 big panels and close up. So I don't think it's compromising at all to the artwork.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think the most important draw is that managing text and exposition is always hard, but Bemis's particular writing in this instance, in this context, every word here has purpose. You're looking at a larger text bubble, but reading it, you never feel like you're not so much bored, but being over-explained, or there's a lot of like actual psychology and that sort of jargon and language used here, and having that in there obviously lengthens the text bubbles, but the way that written is in itself like brilliant and just feels so natural, especially I'm guessing with the character work. And as you said, there's still panels here, awesome panels of like shots of just the eyes that still give way to two short text bubbles. And
yeah, no, it's I think it's very well done, and quite interested to see, and obviously the subject of it being a lot of a mental illness, so there is a lot of explaining to do as well. You can't let the images speak for themselves, because one, you're looking at Dr. Emmett, who's like a psychologist, right, or a doctor studying this mental patient. So there's going to have to be an exchange, but it's all quite exciting.
Would any final words before we move on to our next piece? Obviously, we don't want to go too in depth. Full panel by panel next week.
Yeah, exactly. And like as Connor said, we'll leave it to the loony listeners. You can read it at your leisure, but it is definitely worth looking at the previews. And whether or not you read the 6 pages or just the one or two, it's up to you. So next up, we have. This was put in. I actually didn't really check out too much this article. It was Marvel characters that may have surprise cameos in Avengers Infinity War. Did you give this a read?
No, I didn't actually see this one in the group this week, sadly.
Okay, it was good to put in there. Very thankful that the Looney posted it up. I think it was Tommy. That posted it in there. I don't know, like with Avengers Infinity War, I think it's going to be a really grand film, and there's like 60 odd cast members or whatever. And if there's special cameos here and there, look, I really couldn't be too fussed if you see Moon Knight. It'll be good to see maybe a hint or a nod towards Moon Knight, but I really don't mind. I mean, there are too many other characters there to be invested in to worry about surprise cameos. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't really. This is such a massive scale, and what we know of the Infinity War, it almost wouldn't make sense for Moon Knight to be there. Like, this unestablished character makes his debut by, I don't know, throwing a crescent dart to someone on screen. Just doesn't really seem to fit with in. And I suppose I wouldn't want that sort of. I mean, obviously we want Moon Knight in, but I prefer his own opening into the world, whether it be in his own arc in a Netflix show, or his own Netflix show. The more than just sort of being tied to a cameo in the MCU and having his sort of fate stuck there if anything would change.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see. We've always talked about it. I wouldn't mind a little nod that doesn't reveal too much, but only to the fans. I wouldn't mind seeing a Jake Lockley, drive someone in a cab or something like that, maybe, or there be a building with Grant Industries or something like that. That doesn't necessarily. They don't delve into more, but is just there. I think that would be pretty cool. I think it was a while ago, Connor. We mentioned. I thought I saw in the Doctor Strange film. I saw one of the buildings say Spectacle, but I think I was wrong. I was wrong there. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind something like that. I mean, just like 1 or 2 seconds, if anything. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't want them to try and kind of shoehorn Moon Knight in there with a crescent dart. I mean, because people, first time viewers, or non-comic book fans, will just be going, "What the hell was that? Was that someone else? Are we supposed to know that person?" So it was. I can't wait for Infinity War, but I wouldn't really care if Moon Knight isn't in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sort of takes us on to a bit of an interesting topic, one that I suppose might even put a pin in that, possibly, that Marvel will no longer be able to sell licenses to companies not owned by Disney.
Yeah.
What do you take from this? It's so... just to recap the article, there's nothing. There's basically that title and sort of a statement that says that title, but Disney's given no specific as to what this means for the Netflix shows. I know some of the shows are continuing. Obviously, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff that's already going ahead, like the second seasons of the Netflix and the new Warriors show coming out on Freeform, Cloak and Dagger Runaway. They still are all there, but there's nothing that shows whether we can even have new characters in the Netflix universe now, or it's just,
I'm not sure where this came from. I was reading, there was a thread on it as well, from the Defenders TV podcast. So we had, last week, we had Derek as our guest narrator, and he's one of the hosts there, and they were discussing it, and I tend to agree with Derek. I don't think this will impact too much in the immediate future. It's just hard to say. I mean, it's a bit vague, isn't it? Maybe I'm just being optimistic, and I'd like to think that Netflix is doing so well in partnership with Marvel. It'd be silly not to, not to continue that trend, at least for the next few years, before something like this happens. And again, I'm not too savvy in the business side of things. I don't know how long it will take to turn this around, or if at a flick of a switch they can do it, and next year it's an edict that's been passed. I don't know. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to look at this, if I was to look at this in negative light, this could be pretty scary. I dislike the vagueness, Disney. I feel, especially in its TV show universe and its separation from the MCU, their press releases have usually been super vague, and it's been, it's concerning just because of the lack of information. I mean, this headline might be nothing to worry about, because it might just mean like Disney can't partner with like some other channel in America, but because it's already with Netflix, they can fund their own things and stuff like that, or it could mean we're getting no new heroes there. Just the vagueness, it scares me, and it comes on the back of the fact that Marvel is getting its own subscription service soon that will be its streaming service, better way of putting it, that will probably have its own TV shows. So, I mean, but there's part of me that's... Oh.
But that would be under Disney, right, still?
Yeah, but I'm just not sure how it would connect with Netflix and stuff. I mean...
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, hopefully, I'm feeling hopefully that this isn't too big a change. I think hopefully it's more just Netflix won't Disney won't partner with any new companies. It'll just stick with the ones it already has, rather than, not seeing another new hero on the Netflix silver screen.
Because to me it seems like they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little with... Because it says further down in the article, Disney plans on doing this... and Disney being the Disney production and company it is, I don't think it would lean towards any R-rated superheroes to make the cut. Whereas you look at Netflix and right off the bat with Daredevil, that was ultra graphic, right? And up there in the R or at least MA rating. So in Australia we have a rating MA, which I think is R in the US. And we also have an R rating as well, which is beyond MA 15. But so Disney wouldn't be taking that on board. But those characters and Netflix have proven how successful that is. So either Disney would say, look, Netflix, you've got those characters, but you're not going to have any more, because Disney would probably. They'd either deprive Netflix of more success, possibly, or the same thing would be that they can't kind of introduce an R rating, or maybe they can, into the Disney fold, because it goes against, Disney. It's never going to be, it's never going to, release a Deadpool or something. So the loser at this are the viewers and Marvel, who have a wealth of really interesting characters that unfortunately require a bit more than a PG rating. I mean, they've gotten away with the Avengers and all that, and because the Avengers are kind of like, and I'm sure when the Fantastic Four come back to Marvel, you'll get it's all very family fun, and PG, and you can still have a rollicking kind of action-packed time. But there are other, with Marvel Knights and the Punisher and Ghost Rider and all that, to be true to the character, and Marvel are true to their characters when they translate them to film. You need that extra kind of bit of edge. So I can't see what they're going to do, and the only thing I can see is that Marvel's going to really lose out on it if this goes ahead, unless there's some sort of agreement where Disney go, okay, well, I don't know. unless they just and they let Marvel continue what they do, releasing R-rated characters, whether it be a Netflix or some other subsidiary service that they'll provide, that will be Marvel, or they just continue with their relationship with Netflix. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. I think you hit the nail on the head. The future of this will really depend on how much Disney trusts in who it's already partnered with, whether it trusts Netflix to keep making those great R18 shows for profit and popularity, and whether it trusts Marvel to not just be its lackey, but to actually be its own creative mastermind. And we'll definitely keep abreast of this. This is pretty important for, anything even slightly attached to the Marvel universe. So
yeah,
we'll stay abreast.
Have you been still keeping up to date with the Inhumans as well?
No, I haven't, sadly. Been a bit busy. I have them there. I have The Gifted as well. We have Legion coming back in February, so it's a good time for Marvel shows. Yeah. But
well, I mean, look, I guess I was about to say, and nothing to take away from the Inhumans, because I've only watched 3 episodes, and it's starting to look really good. Unfortunately, I haven't got Wi-Fi set up over here, so I can't really watch the other episodes until a bit later. But I guess my point was saying the Netflix shows and Legion. Those sorts of shows Marvel seem to be hitting it out of the park, TV series wise. And if you look at those shows aren't, they aren't like family fun shows. There's a bit of edge to them. So yeah, I mean, just looking at Marvel's track history, and even with, I'm looking forward to Cloak and Dagger. I mean, although that looks like more of a young teen kind of thing, it still looks pretty damn interesting, and same with The Gifted as well. So yeah, it seems that the successful TV shows are those that aren't that aren't too corny. I mean, Shield itself started off quite shakily, but it got better because, well, you only have to look at the last season, and it got put to a later time slot, so they actually got a higher rating, right? It was an M rating or something like that. And it was immediately more interesting. Maybe it's just the demographic that I'm in, but I find those series a lot more appealing than kind of safe, family fun films or shows. Nothing against that though. Sorry, loonies, if you do like those shows. I can't. I know Daniel. I know Daniel from Geek Street Podcast. He and Joe, they love Gilmore Girls. So each in their own. So yeah. So so we'll keep a close eye on that, loonies, as Connor said, because it is important, especially if you do love your shows as well as your comics. Next bit of news, Connor, we are starting to head towards some really cool stuff, more of the comic side of things. We got something from Bleeding Cool, Marvel Legacy Moon Knight. There was a 188 review. I Am the God Ra. What did you make of this, Connor?
So, Looney's Bleeding Cool got out like a review at the start of the previous week. Yeah. So yeah, they've Marvel's putting a lot of trust in the review, and it was an absolutely glowing review. 9.5 out of 10. That just shows the quality lining up with what everyone else has said online. It's a fairly in-depth review. I mean, if you haven't clicked on it, possibly wait. Like, if you're already sold on buying this issue, of course, I'm not sure the review's entirely necessary for you, but I think it was a good review. It certainly showed me some stuff that got me, possibly even more hyped than I already was. But yeah, what do you think, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're so close to the release date. I agree. I think you can hold off on it. Personally, as well, I do enjoy reading the book and then reading the reviews, like rather than vice versa, because you tend to go into the story, without any influences and stuff, and see if you really enjoy it yourself. And what I do like from reviews is looking back and reading it and going, oh yeah, that was true here or there, and trying to find out things that you may not necessarily have picked up while you were reading it. But so I'd suggest probably leave it a bit until come Wednesday after you've read the issue. There's I don't want to give anything away here, but you mentioned there's slight pacing issues here and there, like it may seem to get but I think if we look at this, Connor, as it's issue 188, but it's essentially an issue 1 for Bemis, and we know issue 1s generally there's a lot of setup involved, and this is definitely the case because coming off the Lemire run, Bemis is, he's putting his own stamp on things and he's introducing new characters, so there's definitely going to be, some slower moments, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the plan. It's why we're getting 2 issues in the first month, and the first month alone, I think, writing these issues, these guys really understood that this is the issue that sets everything up and then moves into motion, really, next issue. And the fact that a setup exposition issue is still apparently a 9.5 out of 10 just sort of shows what we're dealing with here and what we can get with this run.
Yeah, that's a pretty pretty high. It's pretty high praise, actually. I mean, I'm just recalling when we reviewed issue 1 of Lemire's run. Like, that was just brilliant, wasn't it? And that would be on par with a 9.5 out of 10. So if this person who's reviewing it is Joshua Davison, if he's anything like us, Connor, then I think we're on to a real winner for this first issue.
For sure.
Yeah. And finally, we got something else straight out of the Marvel
the Vaults of Marvel
website. Yeah, and this was Moon Knight Bad Moon Rising, and this was a second interview with Max Bemis. I always do enjoy the interviews with the creative artists themselves. This was quite an interesting one. What did you think of this interview, Connor?
It kind of the tagline sort of says, new writer Max Bemis teases 2 new villains, and it seems to talk about the truth. It really doesn't. I was expecting something a bit more concrete. But that said, I think the real takeaway from this interview is just how, not so much influential, but how much love Bemis has put into us, and he wants wants to make this a run that, stands alongside the greats and really sticks with you. And he says he has a lot of plans. He's obviously planned for this to go on for, who knows, maybe like 40 issues and beyond. And I love what he talks about. This very particular line. Just if I may quote the X-ing bit of this article. Every issue is something big introduced permanent to the Moon Knight mythology. At least every other issue is something that's going to change Moon Knight forever. At least in this first arc, he's saying.
Yeah, that's it's pretty. You can read between the lines as well for Bemis. Yeah, he really does. I think, care and care for this character, and he's a bit of a fan, which is really always good to hear. Like as a fan of the character, to hear that the new creative team behind it, have got a vested interest in Moon Knight. What I took from this interview was the creep factor. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
How Bemis was talking. So the Marvel said on a scale of 1 to 10, how creeped out should readers expect to be by these new baddies? And I'm assuming it's by the comic book in general. And Bemis is very realistically saying, well, it's not. I'm not going to say 11 because then I've got nowhere else to go. He set the bench too high. So he goes, I'll give it 188 and 189 issues. I'll give it both about an 8, which is pretty cool. And he goes on to talk about like creepiness and an actual scary vibe, not just So he's really painting a picture of what the tone of this book will be, and remembering his first interview by Marvel as well. He mentioned something along the lines of, this series is tantamount to like reading something at night. You're being immersed in this darkness. So it's got a really creepy vibe to it. And just looking forward to a couple of days from now, Connor.
Yeah, crazy. A whole 3 days we'll be reading this and then reporting back to you on the weekend. I definitely agree on the spookiness factor. I think I really like as well, just along that these villains are going to be mainstay as well. It seems like the mission statement given to Bemis when he was applying was to, make some new villains to stand alongside the existing cast, and the creepiness factor is sort of determined on their introduction, this gauntlet that this first arc will put Moon Knight through. So I think it's totally exciting, and what we've heard about the Sun King so far, it seems like these could be the next Bushmans.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting about this as well, and Bemis touches upon it, just with collaborations in general between writers and artists. Bemis mentions in the article that he created these these legacy characters, which will be the Truth and the Sun King, who will be, long-lasting characters. But he didn't necessarily have a visual for them, and he relied a lot on Jason Burrows. Yeah, and him being comfortable with letting Jason Burrows come up with something, because he's such a big fan of him, that he kind of knew that Burrows would come up with just the right look. So I always find that really interesting, like as a writer, not myself, I'm just talking in general as a writer, how they don't necessarily have a preconceived image or visual of their characters. I always would have thought that they would. I mean, if you look at like Jeff Lemire, albeit him being an artist as well, a penciler, a drawer. Same with Matt Kint. I guess they would have something more visual in their minds as well, because they do draw. But I guess with Bemis, he's a pure writer, so it's up to the artist to come up with an idea.
I think he also makes mention that this book was like tailor-made for Burrows. He mentions that once he knew Burrows was on this book, he wrote to his art style, and I think that's a big thing. And I think possibly I remember listening to an interview with Gillian Tamaki, and she was talking about that as an artist herself. The best writers are those that allow for that creative freedom with art, and I think possibly actually seeing sort of Lemire's scripting, it's quite possible that even Lemire leaves it up to the creative freedom of who he's working with.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and just another window into the world of the comic book world and creating within it. I just found it quite interesting. And looking at, I can't remember, Connor, if it's the variant cover or if it's for cover 189, but it's the one with Moon Knight. He's got the bloody hands, and there's two arms coming out for him. I'm assuming that's the Sun King, right?
No, I think that's the Truth.
Oh, the Truth. Sorry, yeah, it would be because the Sun King's the bearded burbler, right? Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I mean it looks pretty cool and very. I mean, you can't see much. You can see just the eyes and the arms, but
some nice bloody knuckles.
Sorry.
Some nice bloodied knuckles.
Bloody knuckles, yeah, but I mean the arms behind it, it's got a very Egyptian kind of look to it, so that's pretty cool. Any last impressions on this article? Very good article, actually. Loonies, I'd recommend you read it. So again, we'll put this on the show notes as well as all the others. But yeah, definitely give this one a whirl. Any last thoughts on it, Connor?
I think just the conversation we had before, I really hope that possibly Bemis releases his scripting for Moon Knight. I'd love to see the creative process on this. Yeah,
I wonder if because I see it a lot with the Valiant comics.
Yeah, they're great for that.
They're really good. Yeah, it's a nice little behind the scenes thing, and I don't think Marvel don't do it enough. They do it in when they do the collected trades or the collections. You might get a few extra pages at the end where they interview, the writer or the artist, and they give you a bit more of a backstory. But it'll be really cool. To get into it. But yeah, it's let's wait and see.
Yeah, well, I suppose that closes off our big old news segment.
Yeah, a lot of news there, Loonies, to digest. But we've also got two grand issues to get through as well. So let's head over the moon. Right, so we've got a couple of rip-snorting issues here, Loonies. Connor, before we head into the guest narration, can we get a recap on Lemire's story to date?
Done. Death and Birth, Part 5 of 5. After a confrontation with his alternate identities, in which they seem to disappear for good, Mark realized that to become whole again, he must kill Khonshu. Even with this measure of closure, Mark's past, from hospitalization for mental illness to his entry into mercenary work, to his death at Bushman's hands, follows him. While tracking Khonshu in the Overvoid, Mark traded a goddess for his friend Crawley's freedom, and even faced execution. At that hopeless moment, Mark's identities briefly returned to save him. Finally, Mark has arrived at the mental hospital where this story began. Khonshu is waiting.
Yes, all primed for the finale for this great run by Lemire. And also we have another guest narrator for us, Connor, which is pretty cool. Her name is Sparky Mularkey, and she has a YouTube channel called Sparky Mularkey Comics, Cosplay and More. And she reviews comics and looks at cosplay. She's also a great cosplayer in her own right as well. I'm not sure if you've seen her Twitter account. Have you, Connor?
Sure.
Yeah. She's a big Taskmaster fan and a big Moon Knight fan as well. So she's got all the ticks from the ITK podcast. So we are just so grateful to have her guest narrate a couple of our issues for review this episode. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Sparky to give us the first issue for review.
Hello, Sparky Mularkey here, and first up on this segment of Bare Bones is Moon Knight Volume 8, Issue Number 14, Death and Birth, Part 5 of 5, released January 4th, 2017. Written by Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Greg Smallwood, colors by Jordi Belair, lettering by VC's Corey Petit, and editing by Jake Thomas, with cover art by Greg Smallwood. We begin with a scene from the past, as the mercenary Mark Spector is slowly making his way across a sea of burning sand after being beaten and left for dead in the Egyptian desert. Suddenly, Mark's other identities of Stephen Grant and Jake Lockley appear, and they try to comfort him, assuring him that they will always be with him. They tell him to rest, and they warn him that it'll be night soon, and he will be coming for them. As night falls, Mark starts to hear Khonshu's voice, and by the light of the moon, Mark is led to the ruins of a great temple. He is given a choice, death or life. Mark states that he wants to live, and so he becomes the moon god's eyes and hands, his vengeance, the Knight of Khonshu. We then jump to the present as Mr. Knight makes his way through the derelict mental hospital in search of Khonshu. He hears what sound like cries of distress from Marlene, calling for his help from a nearby room. But as he rushes to her aid, he is instead greeted by Dr. Amut and the jackal-headed orderlies Billy and Bobby. They quickly sedate him and prepare him for a session of aggressive shock therapy. This scene in the present is then placed side by side with the events of the previous flashback.